United Nations has played a historical role in Bahrain when delegating a fact-finding team in March 1970 to probe the opinion of the Bahraini people with regards to Iranian claims of Bahrain at the time. In that petition, the majority of the Bahraini people affirmed the Arabic background of the country, as well as its independence, provided that they enjoy political, civil, and human rights. Based on this, Bahrain's first socially binding constitution was written in 1973 by an establishing committee composed of 22 elected representatives and 20 appointed by the government. Although the democratic process at that time undermined some of the people's rights due to the fact that there were 14 members appointed by the ruler participating in the legislation beside the elected representatives, the experience did not last longer than 2 years. In August of 1975, the regime suspended the constitution and dissolved the National Assembly. In this context, it is necessary to remember the long history, ever since the early 20s of the last century, of the struggle of the people of Bahrain, their resistance to oppression and political repression, and continuous call for participation in the decision-making process. The public resistance movement, or the Intifada, in the 90s was the most recent of these experiences, where people called for the reinstitution of the 1973 Constitution and the return of the parliament. Although there were presentiments and a desire by the people for true reconciliation, and after promises granted by high members of the ruling regime in that the 1973 Constitution would always be the ultimate reference for any constitutional amending mechanisms, the Bahraini people accordingly voted by a 98.4% for the National Action Charter in 2001.
أن يؤكد لنا صاحب السمو شخصيا أولا حاكمية الدستور على الميثاق، وأن لا مساس بأي شيء من الثوابت الدستورية. ثانيا، الصلاحية التشريعية الكاملة للمجلس المنتخب.
أنا بحط توقيع على الخطاب. شكرا. بغد ملك. شكرا. يلا. وكل المحبة والتربية. أضم صوتي معكم.
The charter stated that only 2 constitutional amendments were to be made. The first was related to the title of the state, and the second was related to the makeup of the 2 houses of parliament. However, the regime broke all its promises delivered prior to the vote on the National Action Charter. The appointed committee, in complete secrecy, produced a new constitution and called it an amended constitution. This constitution was imposed on the people on the 14th of February 2002. The 2002 constitution has cancelled the notion of public participation in the decision-making process, which the 1973 constitution had declared, and instead established an absolute monarchy. This was accompanied by issuing numerous decrees which strangled public freedom and deepened the oppression in the country. In addition, the amendments involved an unbalanced and unfair gerrymandering, in which the ratio of the voting power in certain districts in the country is 33 times of that in another. It also paved the way for politically motivated naturalization for tens of thousands of foreigners with the intention of changing Bahraini demography.
يعني 20,000 22,000 تقريبا بحر جوازات بحرين. وسعودية عندهم جوازات سعودية عندهم.
لا والله سمعنا ان في تقديم على جواز بحريني، وقالوا تقديم عن طريق عمدة الدواسر. عمدة الدواسر حق الدمام. اخذت اوراقي وثبتت السعودية ورحت قدمت عنده. خلال 6 شهور طلع الجواز البحريني.
والله هي عن طريق العمدة من الدمام هنا، عن طريق العمدة تقدم وتروح الإجراءات في البحرين ويجيك الجواز.
قدمت جوازي من طريق المكتب علي بن عيسى. والله ولا في صعبية، يعني أعطوني طلب الأوراق وأنا عبيته وقدمت على المكتب، وتم حوالي 6 شهور وجابوا لي الجواز، اتصلوا علي وجابوا لي الجواز.
Considering these violations, the Bahraini people have expressed their objection to the intentional disregard of their will and the enforcement of an absolute monarchy by boycotting the October 2002 elections. According to official numbers, only 53% of the eligible voters actually voted. Moreover, this was after the use of all sorts of pressure and methods and threats by the authorities, and the use of the votes of the newly naturalized people. This was followed by numerous events staged inside and outside Bahrain. 2 constitutional conferences